What's happening, guys? Ken Kaplan here in front of the New England Motorcycle Museum with what is probably the most desirable, actually, I'm going to give you my opinion, the second most desirable two-stroke of the 70s, period. And I'll get into that in a second, but guys, stick with me for this one here. Stick with me on this one here. We put a lot of time and effort into this bike. I've got pages and pages of information to go over with what we did with you on this bike. It took a long time. We got a lot of time and money into it. We started working on it last September and just finished it literally this week. This is a low mile, one owner, 1979 Yamaha RD400 Daytona Special. I had one of these when I was a kid. Fantastic machine. We dyno tuned this. It put down 42 horse at the rear wheel, which is stout for a 400. That's approaching CR500 power to weight ratio, and it is an absolute hoot to ride. 8,000 original miles. We went through the complete motor. I have pictures of the cases being split and the engine out of the bike, and I'll go over that with you when we get inside. But the bore on the bike is the original bore. The bore, it measured perfectly, perfect tolerance to the stock piston, so it was reassembled with a stock bore piston and rings, and it's put back to as close to original as we could get it without putting an air box in the stock chambers on there. So it's got these expansion chambers on there, which really bring it to another level of the way it sounds. So enough flapping of the gums. Let me take it for a ride, and I'll give you 3 reasons at the end of the video here why this two-stroke 400 is a rock-solid investment. So, tuned to perfection by Jeff Castine and our techs here. Combination effort between him and us. Over 106 hours on the work order and thousands of dollars of parts. The good news is this is an absolutely stunning. Okay, when I said this is the second most desirable two-stroke, I'm going to give the H2 750 the nod as that being probably the most desirable, most valuable two-stroke street bike of the 70s. I'm going to put the Daytona Special 400 second place behind only the H2. And as far as sex appeal goes, the red and white, I don't think there's an H2 that has a better look than this, and surely it's going to go up in value over the course of time, and they're an absolute hoot to ride. These actually handle good where the H2s don't, so if you wanted a daily rider or a bike to really enjoy, you can't do any better than Daytona Special. Let's take it for a little rip. 42 rear wheel horsepower, 6-speed transmission, disc brakes front and rear. The Daytona Special, this was the last year of the air-cooled two-stroke for Yamaha, and this was a big, basically last hurrah for Yamaha. It had some special things they did to the bike. It had larger diameter fork tubes in the front, and better disc brakes. The frame was reinforced. It had all kinds of special upgrades for the last year, and this thing pulls really nice. I'm only doing 4,500 RPM. Just pulls awesome. This thing really shines on the corners. Unlike the H2s, this thing will actually turn. Just an absolute joy to ride. It's a little colder than I like for riding, but the brakes are on point. Power to weight ratio is on the podium for sure. It definitely has an awesome power to weight ratio. And as far as rideability, drivability, when I worked at the Honda dealership, Mickey Finn's, on the Berlin Turnpike, the shop manager could have rode anything he wanted. For close to 30 years, he rode an RD400 to and from work. Kind of ironic for a Honda shop manager, but What a kick-ass machine. I wish it wasn't 20 degrees out. I'd keep riding it. What's happening, guys? I just got back from the test ride on this bike. What a hoot. What a flashback to my youth. This thing is an absolute rocket ship. 42 rear wheel horsepower, super lightweight, handles like a dream, and it's been gone through top to bottom, front to back. Like I said, we got this bike last September, and I have full Provenance on this bike. Stick with me because I'll read through with you everything in the folder that I have on it. I've got the original title when it came from the DMV in 1979 from the original owner. It's a one-owner bike. He signed it over to his son in 1983, and it hadn't been ridden since then. It had been sitting in their basement for, what's that, 36 years, 36 or 7 years, and needed to be totally restored. So when we got it in, we took it right down to the frame. We took the tank, front and rear fenders off, front end off of it, took the motor out, and had very low miles, only 8,000 miles. But we knew it needed to be dismantled because it had been sitting for so long, and I'll show you the photos of what was inside the crankcase. The gas and oil that had settled in the bottom of the crankcase turned into like a jelly-type mixture. So good thing we took it apart. And actually, Jeff Castine, who's a world-class tech that we outsourced some of our stuff to, did the motor. He's got a dyno. He dyno-tuned it. And I'll show you the pictures of the motor dismantled. But the actual complete engine and block came out, and the cases were split. The crankshaft was removed, and he started with the base bare engine cases. He cleaned the cases inside and out, and then rebuilt the crank and put the crank back together in there with new crank seals, honed the cylinders, mic'd the cylinders. The original bore did not need to be rebored. It was within tolerance. So he put the pistons and new rings back in there, stock bore piston and rings, and new base gasket, new head gasket, cleaned up the head, put new plugs on it, painted the engine before it was put back in the frame. The carburetors were taken out and put in the carburetor cleaning tank for an hour and a half, and completely dismantled and rebuilt and jetted with the K&N filters on there. The actual carb linkage on this is a combined carb linkage, so it doesn't need to be synchronized, to my knowledge. At least that's what I read about it anyways. And it was jetted for the exhaust chambers. He actually sandblasted the chambers and painted those. He also painted the frame cradle before reassembling it. So he got the engine completely sorted out, put a brand new battery in it, and got all the electrics, all the lights and everything back. And then it came back to us. We pulled the front end off of it, put the new fork seals on, the new fork boots, fork oil, completely rebuild the forks, clean the outside of the fork tubes, cleaned and polished the fork tubes. The wheels came off, the wheel bearings were repacked. The brake system was completely rebuilt, starting at the master cylinder, which was rebuilt. The braided stainless brake lines were installed, so it stops on a dime. New brake pads, caliper rebuild kit, and the rotors were taken off and cleaned nicely. The tires were removed. The original tires were still on the bike with 8,000 miles on them. We pulled them off and put these brand new Grand High Speed GS11 IRC tires on the front and rear.
Which RDOT approved in period correct tread.
We got these tires because they were the most close match to the original style, having a 3.5 by S18 on the front and a 3.5 S18 on the rear.
They're exactly to stock specifications.
Exactly. So front end completely rebuilt, steering stem bearings repacked, a brand new set of Superbike handlebars put on it, a new lever. What else did we do? New mirrors and a new set of NOS Yamaha grips. So the tin set, the stock tin set, although straight, the paint had faded and failed, much like we have another one of these in stock that we rebuilt and left the original paint on it, and they look kind of shabby after 40 years. There's not much paint on them from the factory. So we took this tank right down to bare metal in the shop here, as we did the front fender, and then of course the fiberglass pieces on the side were not completely stripped of paint, but sanded down and all the paint, the graphics removed. And our in-house painter Nick took this to his, we don't have a paint booth here, but he's a painter, so he brought it to his friend's paint shop and shot on the actual original NOS from Marble Motors I forget the exact name of the color, but it's an exact factory hue, and we bought it from Marble Motors along with the graphics kit, which is a reproduction graphics kit. So he bought it back and installed the graphics and then clear coated over them exactly how it was done at the factory. The side covers are not clear coated over. They weren't at the factory, and neither was the rear tailpiece, but the tank was. So we did exactly what we did it at the factory. So Nick spent the better part of a week doing that. And like I said, the total on the work order is 106 hours. We probably have more than that into it, but we'll go with that. So the frame was the original paint was in decent shape, so they just touched it up in a few different areas, including the frame cradle. Same thing on the swing arm. You can see the original DOT brake fluid sticker is still on there. The shocks were completely dismantled, and we put this in the vapor blasting tank and vapor blasted the shock, and then sand down the shocks. The original 1979 shocks were refinished, repainted, and the original metal was just in the vapor blaster. The brake system on the rear, again, completely rebuilt. Master cylinders rebuilt. The braided stainless brake line was added. Brand new brake pads. And the disc was cleaned. The rear wheel was cleaned, and the black was repainted on the rim. Tire was stripped off and tube, and a brand new IRC original equipment style tire was put on there. So moving to the back, the original taillight's in great shape. The rear fender was in excellent condition, so that was just cleaned up. The chain guide is the original chain guide that was repainted. The shock again was refinished in-house. Swing arm was touched up. Again, the pipes were painted. Has a brand new chain on it, and the sprocket, I think the sprocket's brand new also, but I'd have to look at the work order. Coming down the side here, the foot pegs are like brand new, as are the passenger pegs. The seat cover looks to be brand new, although that may be the original. I'll have to look at the work order. I don't remember off the top of my head. This side of the engine was repainted, and new Yamaha stickers were installed. So let me show you the paperwork on this thing. This is so rare to find an original owner bike. We have the original owner's warranty guide from August of 1979, the original owner's manual, along with the original registration, and the certificate of title issued in 1979. And he signed it over to his son due to health problems in '83, and his son never rode it. The bike just sat. So this is the dyno report. Stout 42.45 rear wheel horsepower. That's at the rear wheel on a dyno, not pie in the sky numbers. This thing runs phenomenal. Nice torque curve, 29.07 foot-pounds of torque. So very strong motor. This shows the bike up at All Sport. Jeff had the motor completely out of the frame, everything dismantled, and you can see the engine cases here before they went into the cleaning tank. That was a sludge on the bottom from the gas and oil that sat in there for, well, the better part of 30, almost 40 years. So it was completely dismantled, all new crankcase seals, everything assembled using OEM Yamaha components and gaskets, all new gaskets and seals in the entire motor. And amazingly, it's still on original board because it was babied by a 50-year-old guy who had it and never rode it hard. So it didn't need to be redone. So the full Provenance comes with the bike, and very, very rare to find that type of a history.
From a rider's perspective, as far as the fit and feel going down the road, it doesn't get any better than this, especially for a classic two-stroke. This is the best RD that I've ever ridden, never mind from a Daytona special when we're talking about one with stock equipment and not highly modified. This is as good as it gets for, I mean, guys, it's vibration free. The motor's just been completely rebuilt. It's ready to roll.
Kenny's going to go around the bike, and I'll read the 4-page work order to you. The total was 96 hours of labor at $90 an hour plus parts. That came out to $12,358, $2,000 in parts, and the rest in labor. And then, of course, the paint and supplies and shipping. So the bike, if you bought a bike to us and asked us to do what we just did to this bike, you'd get a $12,000 work order. So, which is probably about the retail value of the motorcycle as it sits. So going down the parts list, it has a complete entire motor gasket set, complete engine seal kit, new carburetor gasket kit with float bowl gaskets, new top accordion rubbers on the carbs, new exhaust springs, brand new battery. The tank was not only taken down to bare metal, but the inside was also with the tank rust remover, evapor rust. We have a rear master cylinder rebuild kit. Of course, brake fluid front and rear, and synthetic AMSOIL transmission fluid was used in the bike, and lots of miscellaneous hardware and electrical connectors were also replaced. It has a new regulator rectifier, new brake lines and fittings front and rear, stainless, braided stainless, non-ethanol gas in the tank, which we mixed at all of our street bikes. We mixed non-ethanol, VP Racing fuel, the 94 octane VP at 100-to-1 ratio on our 4-strokes and 2-strokes. It's just something we do here, and it works great. Now this is running off an auto lube injection system, so it has an injector mixing the fuel at probably 32-to-1. So this can run off a pump gas, but on a classic like this, we like to run racing fuel in it. So the injector oil is also synthetic. We use Bel-Ray. It has new spark plugs, new fuel lines, new fuel filters, and all new clamps, new levers, and a new cable adjuster, 4 slide cover grommets, and just so you know, the compression put down a stout 135 psi, and as I mentioned, 42 rear wheel horsepower on the dyno. So the decal set on the bike, of course, is brand new. Tire tubes front and rear are brand new. The grip set is brand new. It's an OEM replica seat cover. I said I thought the seat looked new, and yes, it is in fact brand new. Has brand new black Superbike bar on it, brand new mirror set, brand new 530/96 drive chain, and a new Michelin tire tubes, 325/18 in the front and 400/18 in the rear. Brand new Michelin tire tubes and brand new IRC period correct tires front and rear. We also put a new battery strap in it. Brand new petcock on the rebuilt and refinished gas tank. It's got a brand new petcock, brand new throttle tube also, and new engine cover decals on each side of the motor. So absolutely a labor of love. We had no expenses spared on this rebuild. Whatever we thought we needed is what we did to it. So obviously we removed and replaced the engine to completely disassemble and clean out the lower end. We honed the cylinders, put the new piston and rings in the bike, and the cylinder clearance is 0.0039, and the crank runout is 0.000. So it's about as tight as it's going to get as a new bike. So carburetor's clean in the cleaning tank. The pilot jet is at 35 and a 160 main. We raised the needles so it'll run a little richer. Brand new, of course, training oil, and as I mentioned, flushed and derusted gas tank. Cleaned and honed the brake calipers, cleaned and rebuilt the rear master cylinder, installed the braided brake lines, cleaned and rebuilt the front master cylinder, put the new charging system components in with the new regulator rectifier, sandblasted the pipes. I'm kind of going over a couple things again, but I'm just reading the list here, and painted them. The kickstand was heated, and a custom bend was put onto it so it wouldn't hit against the expansion chambers, and everything that was taken apart was thoroughly cleaned. Some of them repainted or wire wheeled, and all the hardware was painted, and the frame cradle was painted when the engine was out. The points were set and cleaned and timed, and the new battery was installed. The cables were lubed, topped off the injector oil, bled and serviced the oil pump. So quite a bit of labor, very labor intensive. So 106 hours sounds like a lot, but it's 2.5 weeks, and that's what it took to do it. And that's a conservative estimate. You know, I'm sure we had more than that into it. But it's just absolutely a labor of love. The seat cover was replaced, replaced the rear seat cowl after putting the seat cover on it, installed the mirrors, replaced the throttle tube. We actually saved the OEM grip here, so these may be the original grips. It says saved OEM grip. Let's see. Sourced the ducky for the speedo cable to fender. I don't know if ducky is the proper name for it, but that little plastic thing that holds the speedometer cable to the fender. Greased the speedometer cable. Obviously, remove and replace the tires, new chain. Pretty much, while the rear wheel was off, the inner fender was thoroughly cleaned of debris and grease, and the frame was clean in that area. The taillight wires were rewired, and the turn signals were serviced. So rear tire, same thing. Chain guard was serviced and painted. So that's pretty much it. Test rode the bike, and that's a 4-page list of things we did to the bike. I'm sure a lot of little things were done in between now and then, but it is what it is. Over 100 hours labor and thousands of dollars of parts. So there's a $12,000 work order here. And again, full Provenance on this bike. Good luck finding a nicer Daytona Special or any two-stroke from the 70s like this. And this is one of my personal favorites. I am super partial to colors on a motorcycle. I'll give you an example, like the 93 Heritage Softail Harley Davidson, the Cow Glide, black and white. I absolutely love that bike, but the same bike without the black and white and the cowhide and the white wall tires, I don't like it at all. So this bike, this Daytona Special, when these first came out, love at first sight. When I first rode one, love at first ride. I started on an RD400 in 1975. So when I was 15 years old, before I even had a license, I was riding one of these on the street, and I rode that until I got my Yamaha 650. Then eventually I got another two-stroke, a Daytona 400, and it's absolutely an awesome machine. This one's ready for another 41 years. No problem. If you take care of it, they last forever. They're easy to service. All the heavy lifting's been done. I guess I'll show you one other thing here. We'll look underneath the seat. You can see the original tool container is intact. The tool kit isn't in there, but we can get you one out of our stock. The original seat base is in nice shape. Brand new battery and battery hold down. Everything's cleaned up and ready for another 40 years. So any questions about this bike, give us a call, 860-454-7024. We'd love to leave it here on display in the museum as long as you wish, or we can ship it anywhere in the world. The UK is about $750, anywhere in the continental US, $500. If you have any questions about this stunning machine, call us.
Yeah, if I could correct you, anywhere in England for $750 before import duties and tax. Anywhere domestically, contact us with your zip code for a quote. Good luck bidding, guys. Thanks for watching this far. Any questions, don't hesitate to call 860-454-7024. Ask Kenny or Cody.